This is China Airlines Flight 120, just arrived from Taipei, fully laden with 165 passengers and crew, and now rapidly turning into an uncontrollable fireball.
Okay, whoa, I've been on a lot of airplanes and thankfully nothing like this has ever happened to me. Actually, according to statistics, airplanes are supposed to be one of the safest modes of transportation. But you know what, this video has me thinking otherwise. How's it going, you guys? I'm your host for this one, Landon Do Not Sing, and welcome back to another most amazing top 10 video. And I just want to let you guys know of our new channel, Beyond the Screen. The channel's blowing up right now. If you guys want to check it out, click right over here. It's fast growing and we have a new host. I can't wait for you guys to meet them. Go over there and put in the comment section of every video, hashtag Landon sent me here. And if you guys want to wait until this video is done and you want to go check out the channel, the links will be in the description below. Okay, so with any more delays on this one, let's get right into our list. This is the top 10 scariest flights that will freak you out. Starting off this list, in at number 10, we have the Ethiopian Flight 961.
November 1996. A startled tourist captures the scene as a hijacked Ethiopian jet with 175 people on board crashes into the water off the Comoros Islands in the Indian Ocean.
This flight was en route to Kenya from Ethiopia when it was hijacked by 3 Ethiopians who were seeking asylum in Australia. They forced the pilot to fly the plane to Australia, despite the pilot telling them that they didn't have enough fuel. The men threatened to blow up the plane if the pilots didn't obey their demand. Very scary situation. The plane was nearly out of fuel as it approached a large island with lots of tourists. The pilot tried to make an emergency landing at the island's airport, but he lost control because he got into a fight with the hijackers. The plane crashed into the Indian Ocean and 125 out of 175 passengers died that day. An underwear bomb explodes onto this list at number 9. Northwest Airlines Flight 253 was scheduled to fly from Amsterdam to Detroit on December 25th, 2009, so yeah, Christmas Day. But one passenger had something else in mind. He tried to set off chemical explosives that were sewn into his underwear. There were 290 people on board the aircraft, so if his suicide bombing was successful, this would have been one of the deadliest aviation occurrences on US soil. The 23-year-old bomber was a part of Al-Qaeda, and before he was able to detonate his bomb, another passenger saw smoke and quickly tackled him to the ground, and he was able to put out the fire. The bomber was handcuffed, and the pilot was able to safely land the plane. Alright, up next, number 8, we have US Airways Flight 1549, or otherwise known as Miracle on the Hudson. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. The commercial airplane had to make an emergency landing in the Hudson River on January 15th, 2009, shortly after it took off from LaGuardia Airport in New York City. Miraculously, there was only 5 people who were seriously injured and no fatalities. So about 2 minutes into the flight, the airplane flew into a flock of Canadian geese, which caused both engines to become severely damaged. The pilot tried to restart the engines, but they failed to start. He told air traffic control that he was returning to the airport, but the plane continued to fall, so he knew that he wouldn't be able to make it back. So shortly after, he said that he was going to try to attempt a very risky and rare water landing right in the Hudson River. Thankfully, he successfully landed the plane and he made sure that all of his passengers and crew members made it out of the plane alive. He even went up and down the aisles a few times as the plane was quickly sinking to make sure that he got everyone out. He is such a true legend, and hence the reason why Hollywood made a movie about this. Some terrifying turbulence shakes things up in at number 7. That video was recorded during an Etihad Airways flight that showed terrified passengers praying for their lives after this plane encountered severe and unexpected turbulence. Passengers were clenching onto their seats and yelling Allahu Akbar. Some other passengers were thrown from their seats and they actually hit the roof and floor of the cabin. One of the flight attendants said that she has been a flight attendant for 15 years and this is actually the first time that she's ever experienced something like that. The washing machine flight takes us into number 6. Passengers on board of Air Asia flight were told by the captain to say a prayer after there was a problem with the engine. Is this real life right now? If I heard the captain of the plane saying, "Alright guys, it's time to pray," I would be freaking out. I would be losing my shit. Like, what the hell is going on? Is this the last moments of my life? So after about an hour into the flight, passengers heard a loud bang and the engine aircraft began to violently shake. Why the hell are passengers moving around the cabin? Do they think that this is normal? I would be buckled up like, oh my god, what the hell is going on? The flight was eventually rerouted back to Perth due to technical issues, and the aircraft finally landed about 3 hours after departure. So pretty much these passengers on the plane were shaking for hours. Once they landed, the passengers were told that one of the blades had actually come off the turbine. If I'm on a plane, I don't want to hear about anything coming off of a plane, unless I'm on the ground and it's me getting off the plane. I'm pretty sure my flying days would be over. I'd be taking a boat to my next destination, even if it took me a month to reach it. Fuel gushing out of a plane lands itself at number 5. Yeah, this one does not sound good at all. Imagine if you're sitting on a plane and the flight attendant finishes their safety demonstration and everyone was sitting down, buckled up. Now imagine that you're just waiting for clearance to take off, but you look outside your window and you notice this. Take a look at this. Yeah, I'd say your flight is going to be slightly delayed. I might want to check onto another flight. It's actually crazy because a passenger brought it up to a flight attendant and no one even noticed it. If this guy didn't tell these people about this leak, they would have tried to take off. This was a United Airlines flight, so it doesn't really surprise me. A gaping hole brings us to number 4. A China Eastern Airlines flight was forced to turn back to Sydney after there was a severe technical failure that left a gaping hole in the engine casing. Yeah, I'd say that that's a pretty good enough reason for me to turn back. Passengers on board of this flight said that they could smell something burning in the cabin, and there was a loud sound of banging at the start of the flight. Well, that's not too comforting at all.
One passenger said, quote, "I was scared, really scared. Our whole group was terrified." A China Eastern official said on Monday, quote, "The crew observed the abnormal situation on the left engine and decided to return to Sydney Airport immediately."
The pilot was able to land the plane safely, and thankfully everyone on board managed to make it out alive. A propeller that fell off lands itself in at number 3. A plane was forced to make an emergency landing after one of its propellers fell off while it was flying over Sydney. There were 16 passengers and 3 crew members on board of this aircraft, and I bet all of them were scared. The propeller reportedly detached from the shaft and flew over the wing without touching it. They were all extremely lucky that this flying propeller didn't hit the tail or the fuselage, because they probably would have all been dead. British Airlines Flight 9 flies onto this list at number 2. Back in June of 1982, this jumbo jet had 248 passengers on board, and they were flying over Indonesia where all 4 engines suddenly stopped working. That's literally one of my worst nightmares coming true. As the crews worked hard to restart the engines, the captain went on the speaker to say this: "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We have a small problem. All 4 engines have stopped, and we're doing our damnedest to get it under control. I trust you are not in too much distress." I mean, is this freaking real life right now? I would have had an instant heart attack and died on the spot. How can you calmly tell your passengers that all of the engines have failed, but you're trying your best to restart them? I'd rather you didn't say it at all, or at least wait until the problem was fixed and then explain the problem. Like about 5 minutes ago, the engines, yeah, they were messed up. They're good now, And thankfully they were able to restart some of the engines and make an emergency landing. TWA Flight 847 tops our list at number 1. This flight was scheduled to fly from Athens to Rome, but it was hijacked by terrorists. The flight was taken over by 2 Arabic-speaking Lebanese men who managed to smuggle a gun and 2 grenades through the Athens airport security. Over the course of 17 horrific days, the pilot was forced to make repeated trips back and forth from Beirut to Algiers with all of his 153 passengers and crew members on board. The terrorists have tied passengers up and they were severely beating them. The hijackers threatened to kill them unless hundreds of Lebanese prisoners were released from an Israeli prison. 1 man was murdered and the rest of the hostages were released 2 weeks later until some of their demands were met. Well, there you guys have it. You made it to the end of this video. Don't forget to check out the new channel Beyond the Screen. It's the next biggest thing here on YouTube. That's it for me, guys. I'll see you guys all in the next most amazing top 10 video.